there's going to be two steps that we're going to go through to complete this next project. The first step, which is what we're going to accomplish right here, is automating a function inside of Excel through VBA. In this case, we're going to automate the sum function. The second step, we'll do that in the next video, is going to cause this automation of the sum function to happen across multiple worksheets. So let's jump into our first step here, automating the sum function. We're going to do this strictly through code. So the big picture here is East records. Let's do one for right now. On East records, I need to be able to sum up the total expense column. Okay? Now inside of here, we've got F2 through F15. So we got 14 rows of data that we want to sum. And I need a sum to happen right here instead of F16. Well, when we go to the West records, how many rows do we have here? We got the same F column. It starts inside of F2. Every single worksheet, total expense, starts inside of F2. That's a given. That's something we can rely on. But there is 15 rows of data, so we needed to go into cell F17. That's one beyond, right, where the East records are at. Well, how about North? North is 16. How about South? South is back to 17. So it's different. It may be all over the place. It may be row 17. It may be row 31. It might be row 5. I don't know. Each of the worksheets are potentially going to be different. So this is the first challenge in automating the sum function that we need to think about, and we need to start writing the code to accommodate for different amounts of data. So there's the big picture. So let's start writing the code here. I'm going to get back to East. I'll use East just as my first example. So I'm going to open up my VBA window. So Developer, Visual Basic. Let's get that window on the screen here. All right, I got my Project Explorer open. I need someplace to store my code. So I'm going to insert a module. I'm going to go Insert Module. There it is, called Module 1. Now inside that module, I need a procedure. We can go Insert Procedure, and we'll call this Automate Sum. There we go. So it's going to be a sub procedure. It's going to be public in scope. That's great. I'll hit OK. And there's the beginning of my new procedure. All right. So let's think about this. We got that data. Have you etched that in your memory? You got it in there? I'm going to remind you here. There it is. There's all of our data. We want to sum up this F column. Remember, F2, that's a given. We always know that the first value of total expense is in F2, but we don't know where the bottom of it is. All right. So let's start piecing this together. So I want to sum. I want the sum to happen somewhere at the bottom of the F column, whether that's F16 or 17 or 30 or 100 or whatever row it's in. We know that it starts inside of cell A2, but I need to find the end of that F column. Does the last value in F15? Is it in F16? Where's it at? So I need to find that information. Well, first off, we have something that we already know. We know that the data starts inside of the range F2. So I'm going to use the range object here to get over to the F2 cell, dot, and select it. I'm going to put a little comment up here. So I'm just going to say selects the F2 cell of the active sheet. All right, there it is. We know that our data starts there. Again, that's a given across all the worksheets. Now here's the tricky part. Where does the data end? Does it end in 15? Does it end in 16? Where does that end? I need that for two reasons. One, we need it to be included inside of the formula. I need to know to sum up F2 to F15 or F20 or F30 or whatever it is. So I need that last cell for the formula itself. But I also need to know where the data ends, because right below it, we're going to put the calculation that sums up the data above it. Okay? So I need some way within the code to find that last cell. Well, look at this. This is probably something you've done before. If I click into the top, if I want to quickly jump to the bottom, do you ever use a shortcut key? Start at the top. No, I want to quickly get to the bottom. On my keyboard, if I'm inside of F2, and I press Control down arrow, that jumps me to the bottom. If I do Control up, it'll jump me to the top. If I do Control left, it'll jump me to the left. Control down, Control right. So Control down is the one that I'm thinking about. Control arrow down. It finds that empty cell and it says, oh, that must be the end of the data. Let's go ahead and stop right there. Well, what I want to do is I want to take that command, that Control down arrow, and I want to write it inside of VBA. Well, check a look at this. If I do selection, so selection refers to whatever's currently selected. In this case, I just selected cell F2. So take the selection, dot, end, spell that right, end. So this would be like the Control key and then pressing one of your arrow keys. Remember, Control down, left, up, right, and so on. Here, I need to tell it the direction. I'm going to say XL down. Selection, so take the selection, whatever that is, in this case F2, dot, end, and go down. And it's like the Control and your arrow keys. Now, to actually tell it to go down, it's not just good enough to say end XL down, but we got to tell it what to do. Dot select. So we're going to say go to F2, select F2, and then find the last cell inside that column. Selection.end XL down and select it. Now let's just confirm that this is working. This is our first little bit of code, and this is going to help us find one of our first unknowns where that last cell is at. Watch this. Let's get our windows here side by side each other. I'm going to move that over. I'm going to click someplace empty for a moment. I'm going to go back to my procedure. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit the run button. Let's just watch what happens in the background. See it quickly do that? It jumped up to F2 and then jumped to the bottom. Let's do that again. If you blink, you're going to miss it. F2 to the bottom. F2 to the bottom. It found that last cell. So this is our first bit of kind of a hurdle that we're getting over through VBA code, and we're automating the experience of finding that last cell to help us build the calculation. So try this out. We're going to take this into pieces. Try that out first. Get these two little bits of lines of code in here, and then we'll jump in and we'll continue building the automation of this sum function.